All right, Chris Laughlin, we worked on a couple fun things today. We talked about parallel thirds, so continue to do your scale from E5 to B12. Sorry. In ascending and descending patterns for major and minor. And then I pointed out that if you play the first note and the third note on the first string simultaneously, is your E and your G sharp, that's called a major third, and that's called a minor third. So just like every other chord scale, it follows the same logic. Major, minor, minor, major, major. I'm stopping at 5 for convenience sake. Now move that down to D and do it in D. It's nice to be broken up too, which is like what the song does. So the first step to understanding the song was to slide from this D up to the third note of that scale. So it's... And so the way to think about it is leave the slide out and just think about this as the downbeat go. That's sort of the pattern. Starting over again. With the slide, it's kind of elusive, so. So that's the intro riff based on a parallel third and a slide. And then we looked at the triad scale in D. And we talked about a new style of triad. And we talked about the logic of triads more broadly. So if you play the first note of a new scale plus the third note, G sharp, that's the root and the third. They sound beautiful together, as you know. And then we play the fifth. That's the logic of the triad, the first, third, and fifth note of the scale, because adjacent scale tones are a little too close together to sound good simultaneously or harmonically. So that's an E major and that's an E minor. So this is the class of triads we didn't do last week. This is root position, 1, 3, 5. This one, you already know that E is the 1 and G sharp's 3. B is the 5, it's just lower. So this is 5, 1, 3. And then for completion's sake, an E major chord, if you leave everything out but the high 3, is 3, 5, 1. This is the equivalent of that G shape I've already taught you. 3, 5, 1. So you have 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, and the root position, or the most basic one to understand. And then we played a little bit with escape tones as a digression. So I said that the fifth, which is on the G string, can escape upward. As in the case of, well, a bunch of different songs. It can escape downward. That was that Death Cab song. Probably just to that version of an E. Or more commonly, and that works also in a minor chord. Then it has the Hey Bulldog song. If you know that Beatles song, you can talk to me. But so many Beatles songs use it. I guess a much more famous example would be Eleanor Rigby. But anyways, that's for another week. And then for both of these, the root can escape downward. So to go back to E major, here's my root, E natural. That's the something trick. You can keep going with it, of course. Works beautifully on a minor chord as well. So that's a brief digression on what we call escape tones. So some note of a triad escapes. And that's why it's nice to know where the fifth is, where the third is, and where the root is. And then you asked about the thirds. That's the simplest class of ones, because they can go up to make a sus4, or down to make a sus2. Down a full step. Otherwise, it's just a minor chord. That's an annoying way to play it. This is how we like to play it. Okay, back to your song. So we thought of two different ways to play the intro F sharp minor to G. You could do this. Or you could do it like this. This doesn't put the right note in the high voice, so it sounds a little less like it. This puts the right note in the high voice. Then you can play the D string after that. Go. Actually, I didn't think about that. You can play the D string the whole way through, dude. That's kind of fun. That could be a reverse. And then the chorus just goes up the chord scale, so it's E minor, F sharp minor, G, back to F sharp. Then it goes 2, 3, 4, 5. So I like that because you can learn your triad scale and put it to work. But on the chorus, you probably just want to go and just do full bar chords, so it has that rich sound. But you can certainly play along to live recordings, and it'll sound cool. And the final thing I gave you is if you wanted to embed those triads within the chords, you could play it this way. It's a D major 7 technically, but it's an F sharp minor triad with a D root, and then to a G chord with D in the bass, which is the shape you probably always use to play F. So if you want a kind of a richer sound, it's not the exact right voicing because the wrong voice is in the top note, but it's all the right notes versus this, which is a little too bright. What they really do is something more like this. That's just not very guitaristic. It's kind of a stretch. It's not comfortable. Okay, I think that's most of the lesson. Have fun, bud.